Hello, my dear friends. Today we will discuss general pharmacology. If we see the dictionary meaning of pharmacology, we find that Merriam-Webster dictionary defines pharmacology as a science of drugs, including their origin, composition, pharmacokinetics, therapeutic use, and toxicology. So it deals with the properties and reactions of drug, especially with relations to their therapeutic value. So pharmacology is the study of therapeutic value and or potential toxicity of chemical agents on biological system. When we see etymology, we find that pharmacology is derived from Greek words. Pharmakon means drug, logos actually meaning it is speech or account, but we take this in terms of study. So pharmacology is study of drugs with their therapeutic values. When we see the history of pharmacology, we all know that the ancient man learned about the usage of medicines from their observations on animals and birds, and a lot of things came from instinct too. So that's well explained in Ayurveda. This also we find in from text in ancient China or from various other civilizations like Babylonia or Egypt. Hippocrates is still considered as great physician, or Hippocratic oath is taken. He is considered to be father of modern medicine. But the origin of clinical pharmacology dates back to Middle Ages with pharmacognosy, where various herbal formulations or various drugs were utilized for different purposes. So we find that earlier pharmacology was focused on herbalism, that was including extracts like decoctions, kasai and all, and other natural substances. So medicines were compiled in book. We used to say materia medica, not pharmacopoeias are there, those are the official documents about the drugs by the government. Then the word crude drug comes. The crude drugs have been used since prehistory for the preparation of substances from the new natural sources. Active ingredients are compound responsible for therapeutic effects. In 19th century, pharmacology emerged as its own discipline as results of researches done in organic chemistry and physiology. It was Claude Bernard. He investigated the plant extract curare, or curare was the name for various plant extract alkaloid which were used in Europe for poisoning, and this was well practiced in Central and South America. Claude Bernard proposed a site of action for this agent. Then it was Ostwald Smithberg. He started an institute of pharmacology in Strasbourg, France in 1872. He is considered as the father of pharmacology. J.N. Langley and Sir Henry Dill started pharmacological works in England with physiological approach. John J. Abel is known as father of American pharmacology. Now, the important portion is coming in this general pharmacology, that's the drug. Drug, we all know that is a chemical substance, typically of known structure, which produces a biological effect when administered to a living organism. Pharmaceutically, drug is a chemical substance or group of chemical substances intended to be used to treat, cure, prevent, or diagnose a disease or to promote well-being of living beings. They are also called as medicines. So traditionally drugs were obtained through extraction from medicinal plants, but now they are also produced through synthesis. When we see the sources of drug, there are various sources of drugs are suggested, like plant sources. Many of drugs used in Ayurveda are from plant sources. More than 400 medicinal plants are suggested already, like Guruchi, Haritki, Vivitki, these all are there. Another one is animal sources. Fish, liver, cod oil, we all know. Other than that, various vitamins are taken out of animals. Even insulin is extracted from porcine and bovine pancreas. Now, after that, there is another source, mineral sources we used to say. Number of drugs are being used in Ayurveda from mineral sources, like iron salts we are using, magnesium salts we are using, calcium salts we are using. Then modern science also they are using, even gold for arthritis, calomel for constipation, kaolin for the treatment of diarrhea. So after all this, we find synthetic sources are very much important nowadays, as we find that around 50% of drugs are in synthetic or semi-synthetic forms. So majority of drugs in present time are prepared synthetically from chemical substances. Semi-synthetic drugs are naturally occurring substances that is modified chemically for desired effect. Then important another source is recombinant DNA technology. This is a very innovative technology now used for production of human insulin by introducing insulin gene into harmless strains of E. coli. The amino acid sequence of insulin this way produced is identical to endogenous human insulin. When a synthetic human growth is also being prepared by recombinant technology, and it is expected that in coming future this may be a totally different and revolutionized technology what is supposed to be frequently used for different purposes. When we see the classification of drugs, they are also classified based on their site of action, or they are categorized according to therapeutic activity. They are also divided based on mode of action or their chemical structure. So there are various ways for the classification of drugs. When we see the scope of pharmacology, the scope simply means what? That's the options of pharmacology for various purposes. So scope of pharmacology is rapidly expanding and provides the rational basis for therapeutic use of drug. It is rather young science where options of pharmacology is too much in terms of chemical structures. Those are related with the mechanism of actions, their structure activity relationships in terms of pharmacological effects are important to understand. Pharmacology is also used in drug designing because ultimately it's the impacts of drugs in different parts of the body what we are looking for. So pharmacology is used in laboratory animals to find out the details of impacts of those drugs on the body and how body reacts to these drugs. So these things are studied, we will see in details in other chapters. This is also used in posology, that's in dose determination. The details we will come across while dealing with pharmacodynamics and pharmacokinetics. It is also used in understanding of pharmacological effects of drug. Scope is further there to find out the site of actions. For that you will find that different classifications are given for pharmacology based on organ, based on therapeutic effects, etc. It is also used in mechanism of drugs actions at molecular level, cellular level, tissue level and organ level. Ultimately it also find out the impacts on the body. It is also used to find out untoward effect or side effects or toxic effects of drugs. The scope is a lot nowadays in computer assisted drug designing. That's why you will find that number of things are increasing very highly in biotechnology. Further scopes are there in genetic engineering. All the drugs are related with the gene, and it's gene what guides to find out the clues for therapeutic impacts or effects of the drug. When we see about the receptors, those are the macromolecules basically based on protein structures. This is the region, it is a lot applied in protein engineering also, because ultimately if the drug combines and carried through that, then only impacts may be possible on the body. Pharmacology is also utilized in novel drug delivery vehicles, so that what should be the best one, understanding the route of administration and the best way to bring the compounds to appropriate site to relieve from the problem. There are many other scopes of pharmacology which we will come across when we have completely dealt the details of pharmacology. Now we will see the general principles of pharmacology what we are using. General principles of pharmacology that mainly includes pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics. Pharmacokinetics are related to movement of drugs in body and effect of body on the drug. It is concerned with absorption, distribution, metabolism and excretion of drug and its concentration. Now we will start with absorption. Absorption, as we all know, is concerned with process of entry of drug into systemic circulation from the site of administration. It depends upon solubility, concentration gradients, surface area and vascularity. Usually intravascular administration does not involve absorption, as bioavailability is near about 100%. With extravascular administration, means other than vascular administration, less than 100% of dose may reach the systemic circulation due to variations in bioavailability. Fastest route of absorption is inhalation, as drug particles directly move to lungs and capillaries. Dose of drug depends upon absorption and bioavailability of drugs. You can see here in this chart of plasma drug concentration and time, as the administration of drug is done, it takes certain time to reach at maximum concentration, what we also call peak plasma concentration, where absorption rate is equal to elimination rate. After that, elimination phase starts. So here the maximum intensity of action you will find at Cmax. But before that, you can see onset of action is shown there. That from the onset of action to when it is crossing down in elimination phase, from that same line, this complete time period is known as duration of action. So area under the curve is taken from there where this onset of action starts. So accordingly, this is divided in absorption phase and post absorption phase. So maximum safe concentration you can see like MSC. There after that, the drug leaves toxic effects on the body. So this range from minimum effective concentration to maximum safe concentration is called as therapeutic range. Just below is subtherapeutic level. In all these things, first pass effect is important. Drugs given per OS, means by mouth, are absorbed into portal circulation. Then they are initially distributed to the liver. For some drugs, their rapid hepatic metabolism decreases bioavailability. This is known as first pass effect. Here you can see, as we have given the drug, it's going down through mouth to stomach, and then GI tract is there completely. It is through liver, it's going to portal circulation, and from there it's moving to systemic circulation. But here, if in that portal circulation area, you will find that actually this is distributed, and that in this area exactly hepatic metabolism happens, which decreases the bioavailability. But some of the drugs, if that's given sublingual like nitroglycerin, their rapid absorption happens from there only. This is usually provided in angina attack. Even lidocaine we are giving in IV, but rarely it is also given per oral also or per OS, but that's coming less or low in systemic circulation. You can see here that when we have given any drug through IV, that's in beginning only it's 100% bioavailability. That's decreasing with the time. While when we have given per OS, that's in extravascular dose. This is first going to increasing, and then after a certain time it's decreasing. So here from this only, we are finding this bioavailability. So that's the area under curve per oral divided by area under curve IV. So based on that, we are calculating loading dose for the drug. Another portion comes, that's the distribution. It includes processes of distribution of a drug from systemic circulation to organs and tissues. Conditions are there which affect distributions. Under normal conditions, protein binding capacity is much larger than drug concentration. So free fraction is generally constant. We will see exactly what is this free fraction and how this is coming. Many of these drugs bind to plasma proteins with an equilibrium between bound and free molecules. So drug, when are separated or separate drug and proteins, they are active and free. But when they are forming a complex, they become inactive or bound forms. So this also depends upon the nature of drugs. There is always competition between drugs for plasma protein binding sites. It may increase the free fraction. That may possibly enhance the effects of drug displays. The best example is warfarin. Warfarin you will find that's commonly available in a lot of plants. Hypericum is one of that. If warfarin and sulfonamide are given, so here sulfonamide will displace warfarin from albumin. Sulfonamide combines with albumin, which results in increased plasma level with warfarin, and that causes warfarin toxicity. There are two barriers usually what we consider which affects the distribution. First of them is placenta barrier. Mostly small molecular weight drugs cross the placental barriers, although fetal blood levels are usually lower than maternal. Another one is blood-brain barrier. Only lipid-soluble low molecular weight drugs crosses the blood-brain barrier. If any drug crosses blood-brain barrier, it will easily cross placenta. So drugs safer in pregnancy must be of water-soluble nature with high molecular weight, and they should be easily bound to protein, so that will increase the size of the drug or that complex, protein drug complex. Now we will see what is apparent volume of distribution. A kinetic parameter of a drug that correlates dose with plasma at 0 time. That's the volume of distribution we are taking, like dose at C0. C0 means plasma concentration at 0 time. As IV route is selected for drug administration, plasma starts decreasing with time 0 only, because that time only the maximum, as it is introduced, maximum concentration is there. So 0 time is taken. So dose can be calculated if VD, that's volume of distribution, and plasma concentration at 0 time CO is known. VD is low when high percentage of drug is bound to plasma proteins. VD is high when high percentage of drug is sequestered in tissues, means those are hidden in tissues. This raises the possibility of displacement of other agents. Like you can see verapamil and quinidine. Both of them can displace digoxin from tissue binding site. Verapamil is calcium channel blocker used for relaxing the heart muscles. Quinidine is used as antiarrhythmic agent, while digoxin, a cardiac glycoside from Digitalis lanata, is used to treat atrial fibrillation. You can see approximate volume of distribution value for 70 kg men. Plasma volume as 3 liter, blood volume as 5 liter, extracellular fluid 12 to 14 liter, and total bodily fluid 40 to 42 liter. So if most of drug is in plasma, volume of distribution is low as target is specific tissue. If most of drug is outside of plasma, then only volume of distribution is high. So volume of distribution is usually taken liter per kg body weight. Now another point is there, redistribution. In addition to crossing the blood-brain barrier, lipid-soluble drugs redistribute in fat tissues prior to elimination. Specifically when we take the case of CNS drug, the duration of action of an initial dose may depend more on redistribution rate than half-life. So with second dose, the blood per fat contribution is less. Therefore, the rate of administration is less and second dose has longer duration of action. Now we will come to drug metabolism or biotransformation of drug. So drug metabolism is important part of pharmacokinetics, specifically for biochemical pharmacology. It is primary mechanism by which drugs are inactivated. It is also called as biotransformation, as many of drugs are reduced or abolished or changing their forms due to enzymatic or various other related reactions. It is related with alteration of substance, typically a drug within the body. Chemical modifications occur. It involves metabolic conversion of drug molecule to more water-soluble metabolites that are readily excreted. So we can see here, biotransformation of drug can result in drug is going to inactive metabolites. That happens with most of the drugs. Or drugs may convert to active metabolites. That's having clinical correlates as we usually find with benzodiazepine. Or some of the prodrug is converted to drug, as it happens with many antimetabolites. So biotransformation can be classified in two phases, phase 1 and phase 2. When we are seeing to phase 1, it is related to modification of the drug molecule by oxidation, reduction or hydrolysis. Hepatocyte endoplasmic reticulum is important in this case. However, cytosols and mitochondria are also involved. Hepatic smooth endoplasmic reticulum contains the cytochrome P450, what we also call CYP450 enzymes. There are usually more than 50 different CYPs are present in human body. CYPs are involved with metabolism of xenobiotics, means foreign substances as drugs, pesticides, fertilizers or anything ingested by human beings. Then microsomal oxidation causes hydroxylation of aromatic and aliphatic compounds. Microsomes, we all know that they are the vesicles like artifact of endoplasmic reticulum. They are also responsible for deamination, sulfur oxidation and dealkylations. Dealkylations means removal of alkalis. These reactions require reduced nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate, molecular oxygen and one or more of a group of CYP450 hemoproteins. CYP450 enzymes are also involved in the oxidative biosynthesis of mediators or other biochemically important intermediates as synthase enzymes. CYP450 enzymes are also involved in the oxidative biosynthesis of mediators or other biochemically important intermediates as synthase enzymes involved in oxidation of arachidonic acid to prostaglandins and thromboxanes. They are CYP450 enzymes with distinct specificities. CYP450 may work as inducers or inhibitors. It means it may either increase enzyme activity or inhibit the enzymatic activity. So this is the region. It is having clinical correlate. Like if you give active components of grapefruit juice, that will inhibit metabolism of many drugs, specifically as statins. Then point comes for non-endoplasmic reticulum drug metabolism. Oxidation of ethanol to acetaldehyde and of chloral to trichloroethanol is catalyzed by a systolic enzymes. That's alcohol dehydrogenase, whose substrates also include vitamin A. Monoamine oxidase is a membrane-bound mitochondrial enzyme that oxidatively deaminates primary amines to aldehyde. We all know that MAO inhibitors are used as antidepressant. MAO is found in liver, kidney, intestine, nervous system, and its substrates include catecholamines. Those are group of sympathomimetic amines, including dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine, which play important role in stress. Dopamine, noradrenaline, and adrenaline, triamine regulate blood pressure. Phenylephrine is decongestant that is used to treat stuffy nose and sinus congestions. And tryptophan, when we talk, tryptophan is an essential amino acid that serves several important purposes like nitrogen balance in adults and growth in infants. So it also creates niacin, which is essential in creating the neurotransmitter serotonin. Oxidation of purines by xanthine oxidase is also non-microsomal. Reduction, when we are talking, that includes enzymatic reduction of double bonds like methadone, naloxone. Esterases usually catalyze hydrolytic conversions of many drugs like aspirin to salicylate, and the hydrolysis of enalapril, though that is to enalaprilate. This is used as ACE inhibitor. When we talk about phase 2, we all know that amino acid reactions mainly involve amino acids glycine and glutamine. They are responsible for conjugation reactions. That's nothing but the covalent attachments. Glycine forms conjugates with nicotinic acid and salicylate, while glutamine forms conjugates with p-aminosalicylate. Acetylation involves acetyl coenzymes. Activity occurs in leukocytes, gastrointestinal epithelium, and the liver, specifically in reticuloendothelial rather than parenchymal cells. Glucuronidation is conjugation reactions between glucuronic acid and carboxyl groups are involved in the metabolism of bilirubin, salicylates, and lorazepam. Some patients inherit a deficiency of glucuronide formation that presents clinically as non-hemolytic jaundice due to excess unconjugated bilirubin. That's we all know in case of Crigler-Najjar syndrome. When we talk about the glutathione, it is a natural antioxidant. Naphthalene and some sulfonamides form conjugates with glutathione. One endogenous function of glutathione conjugation is formation of sulfidopeptide leukotriene, leukotriene C4. This is formed by conjugation of glutathione with LTA4, analogous to a phase 2 reaction. LTA4 is an epoxide which is synthesized from arachidonic acid by a phase 1 type oxidation reaction and catalyzed by the lipooxygenase enzymes. So LTC4 together with its dipeptide product LTD4 comprise the activity once known as slow reacting substance of anaphylaxis. And these leukotrienes play a role as bronchoconstrictor mediators in anaphylaxis and in asthma. Now we talk about the elimination or excretion. This is process of termination of drug from the body. The kidneys are involved in the elimination of virtually every drug or drug metabolites. The contribution of renal excretion to total body clearance of any particular drug is determined by its lipid solubility, or we can say polarity. Elimination of non-polar drugs depend on metabolism to more polar metabolites, which are then excreted in urine. Polar substances are eliminated efficiently by the kidneys because they are not freely diffusible across the tubular membrane and so remain in the urine. Even though there is concentration gradient favoring reabsorption from tubular to interstitial fluid, renal elimination is influenced by several processes that alter the drug concentration in tubular fluid. Some other mode of excretions are also there, like bile ducts, lungs, sweat, etc. So time to eliminate 50% of given amount of drug is known as elimination half-life. That is denoted by T 1/2. When we talk about zero order elimination rate, it is a constant amount of drug eliminated per unit time. Rate of elimination is independent of plasma concentration. Drugs with zero order elimination have no fixed half-life, like we find in ethanol, aspirin, phenytoin, etc. But fixed quantity of these drugs are eliminated in fixed time. Suppose if we talk about aspirin, that is eliminated as per rate of 10 mg in every 4 hours. But most of the drugs follow first order elimination rate, where a constant fraction of drug is eliminated per unit time and they have constant half-life. So rate of renal elimination depends upon glomerular filtration rate, secretion and reabsorption. Then clearance, when we talk, it is volume of blood cleared of drug per unit time. It is constant first order kinetic, means constant proportion is eliminated per unit time. Clearance becomes equal to GFR when there is no reabsorption or secretion or plasma protein binding. Inulin clearance is used to estimate GFR. It is not reabsorbed or secreted. However, normal GFR, if we see, that's 120 ml per minute. So clearance is usually taken in terms of free fraction and GFR. Actual clearance is always more than GFR because secretion is going on. Most of the drugs are given continuously. You can see over here. Clearance is important because it defines the rate of administration required to maintain a plateau drug concentration. You can see in this case, after every half-life, the drug concentration is reduced to half. So, in plateau drug concentration, relationship of dosage per unit time and half-life of elimination to the volume of distribution of drug are taken. Together with the extent of distribution outside of plasma, clearance is determining over here the speed at which drug is eliminated from the body. Then ultimately, if we are continuing with same dose, then we are finding that minimum effective concentration is maintained after so many of hours. You can see over these cases here. So this is the basic information about the pharmacokinetics. Now we will see about the pharmacodynamics. Pharmacodynamics is a study of effects of drugs on biological processes. It is concerned with the mechanism of their action. Exactly, it is the study of relationship of drug concentration and the biological effects. Those may be physiological or biochemical. For most of drugs, it is necessary to know the site of action and mechanism of action at the level of organs, functional system or tissue. Suppose if we are taking drug effect, whether it may be localized to brain or neuromuscular junction or heart or kidney, etc. Such type of things we are trying to find out in pharmacodynamics. Exactly, the mechanism of action is representation of interactions between drug molecules and biological structure. This is the region it is described in biochemical or molecular terms. Most of drugs exert their effects on organs, on several organs or tissues, and have unwanted as well as therapeutic effects. So there must be a dose response relationship for wanted and unwanted or untoward effects. Number of times patient factors also affect drug responses like age, weight, gender, diet, race, genetic factors, and number of them are there. So pharmacodynamics is related to drugs binding to receptor and their effects on the body or organs or tissue. But not all drugs work via receptor for endogenous mediators. Many therapeutic drugs exert their effects by combining with an enzyme or transport protein and interfering with its function also. So to understand exactly the effect of drugs or to mechanism of drugs, some terms are important here, like receptor. Receptors, whenever we are talking, they are chemical structures on cells or group of cells that receive and transduce signals that may be integrated to biological system. Exactly, we are here taking group of cells, but normally we can say at cellular level only. So they are composed of proteins. They have affinity for a specific chemical group or molecule. So accordingly, they are divided in some superfamilies because broadly categorization is done. Each superfamily is linked to distinct types of signal transduction mechanism, means passing of signal to result in receptor activation with cellular response. 3 of them are located inside the cell membrane, while 4th one is intracellular. Specifically, we will see with steroid hormone receptors like that way. So these 4 superfamilies, if we see, like channel linked receptor, they are linked to transmembrane ligand gated ion channel, like we can see in nicotine receptors. In this type, many drugs act by mimicking or antagonizing the actions of endogenous ligands that regulate flow of ions through excitable membrane via their activation of receptors directly coupled. So there is no secondary messenger over there to ion channel. Like if you see in case of nicotinic receptor for acetylcholine, this is present in NS ganglia or neuromuscular junction and CNS. They usually couple to sodium or potassium ion channel. The receptor is target for many drugs including nicotine, cholinesterase, ganglion blocker and skeletal muscle relaxant. Similarly, for GABA A receptor in the CNS, which is coupled to chloride ion channel, can be modulated by anticonvulsant like benzodiazepine, etc. Then another one is G protein coupled receptor. So G protein coupled receptor, if we see, they are linked to an intracellular G protein like muscarinic receptor. So many of these systems are coupled via GTP binding proteins, that is G protein exactly, to adenyl cyclases, the enzymes that converts ATP to CAMP, a second messenger that promotes phosphorylation by activating protein kinase A. These receptors are typically serpentine with 7 transmembrane spanning domain, the third of which is coupled to G protein effector mechanism. Protein kinase A serves to phosphorylate a set of tissue specific substrate enzymes or transcription factors like CRAB we have seen, and thereby they affect their activity. So G protein may be of various type like GS protein. So binding of agonist linked to GS protein increases cyclic AMP productions. Such receptors include those of catecholamines, specifically beta catecholamines or dopamine 1D1, glucagon, histamine H2 we are talking, then prostacyclin and some serotonin subtypes. Another one is GI protein. So binding of agonist linked to GI protein decreases CAMP production, while GS was increasing CAMP production. So such receptors include adrenoreceptors like alpha 2, like that way, then acetylcholine M2, dopamine D2, and several opioid and serotonin subtypes. Then it comes to GQ proteins. This is the other system coupled via GTP binding proteins GQ, which activates phospholipase C. Activation of this enzyme release the second messenger, IP3 and DAG. IP3 is nothing but inositol triphosphate, and DAG is diacyl glycerol. So they release this IP3 and DAG from the membrane phospholipid PIP2. IP3 induces the release of calcium ion from sarcoplasmic reticulum, which together with DAG activates protein kinase C. So protein kinase C serves then to phosphorylate a set of tissue specific substrate enzymes, usually not phosphorylated by PK, but then thereby they affect their activity. So these signaling mechanisms are involved following activation of receptors for acetylcholine, specifically M1 and M3, and norepinephrine through alpha 1 or angiotensin 2 and serotonin type. So these are G protein coupled receptors. Now we come to enzyme linked receptor. They are linked to an enzyme on the inner membrane, like insulin receptors. Then the fourth one is intracellular receptor. They are receptors, they are present in cytoplasm. They are also called as receptors for steroids. Binding of hormones or drugs release regulatory protein that permit activation in this case. And in some cases, dimerization like oligomers formed from two monomers like that way, etc. of the hormone receptor complex are formed. So they will make that complex and they will migrate to nucleus. There they attach with specific DNA sites and produce alterations in gene transcription and protein synthesis. Like if you see drugs interacting with glucocorticoid receptors lead to gene expression of protein that inhibit the production of inflammatory mediators. Other examples you can include like intracellular receptors for thyroid hormone, gonadal steroid and vitamin D. So pharmacological responses elicited via modification of gene expression are usually slower in onset but longer in duration than many other drugs. So these are the receptors superfamilies. Now another point is important over here, agonist. Agonists are biomolecules or drugs that activate receptors for endogenous mediators to leave excitatory or inhibitory actions. It means they are drugs, or any drug is called as an agonist when binding to the receptor results in response. When we plot dosage versus response for agonist or drugs that activate receptors, so they reveal information about affinity, potency and efficacy of these agonists. The plot is called as dose response curves. This is quantitative or quantitative DR curves. So you can see here in two of the drugs, A has more affinity than B as A is more close to y-axis. Same way A has more potency than B or it is closer to y-axis. Means if any drug is closer to y-axis, it means it has more affinity and potency. But efficacy is not related to closeness to y or x axis, but it is related with the height. So here in both cases, same height is reached. It means both have similar efficacy. In another one, when we plot this log dose of drug of different receptors in terms of response percentage, so we find that curve of D1 is taller and closer to y-axis. So D1 is more potent than y-axis. Here affinities cannot be compared for different receptors. But still both of them have different heights. So D1 has more height, so more efficacious. So efficacy is more important clinically as it is directly related with effect. Another term is antagonist. They are biomolecule or drug which is not associated with response when it is attached to receptor. The drug has an effect by preventing an agonist from binding a receptor. You can see in this log dose of drug with percentage response. So here potentiation you can see in first of this height or response. Second is control agonist. And third one is antagonism. So antagonism here they are having very least height. So most of the drugs are competitive for receptors. Drugs bind to receptor by weak ionic bond. Competition between agonist and antagonist occurs. In some of the cases, non-competitive drugs are there. Like if we talk about digoxin. Digoxin is a sodium potassium ATPase blocker. While phenoxybenzene we are giving for the same time, that's the alpha blocker. So here there is no competition at all. Same way if we are giving this with aspirin, aspirin is the inhibitor of COX. So that's not related with competition. Same way if we talk allopurinol, that is given to prevent gout or uric acid because they are inhibiting xanthine oxidase. Actually xanthine oxidase catalyze oxidation of hypoxanthine to xanthine and further xanthine to uric acid. This is the reason we are giving this. So pharmacologically antagonism may be for the same receptor, like competitive if we talk, they cause a parallel shift DR curve for agonist. They can be reversed by increasing the dose of agonist drug. They appear to decrease the potency of agonist. When we talk about non-competitive antagonism, they cause a shift to the right. They can be only partially reversed by increasing the agonist dose. They appear to decrease the efficacy of the agonist. There are physiological antagonism also. When two agonists with opposed action antagonize each other, they are called as physiological antagonism. Like a vasoconstrictor with a vasodilator. Same way chemical antagonism is there, means formation of a complex effector drug and another compound. Like if we talk protamine binds to heparin to reverse this action. So these are different types of antagonism also. Potentiation, whenever we are talking, that causes a parallel shift to left in DR curve. They appears to increase the potency of agonist. When we talk about the partial agonist, so those drugs which are incapable of eliciting a maximal response. It doesn't matter on the how much their concentration may be. After combining with receptor, they are incapable of eliciting a maximal response. So they are called as partial agonists. They have low efficacy, but they are effective than complete or full agonist in some of the cases. Like if we talk about the duality of partial agonist, as you will find that as the partial agonist displaces the full agonist from the receptor, the response is reduced. The partial agonist is acting as antagonist over here. So competition for receptor occurs by full or partial agonist. So full agonist, like if we talk about epinephrine, that's the full agonist is there, that is used to cardiopulmonary resuscitation. So they increase heart rate. So they are used as in anaphylactic shock. But when we are talking about pindolone, it is used to treatment for hypertension and angina pectoris. They antagonize the effect of epinephrine. So if full agonist is given with partial agonist, effect will come in between of them. So a lot of times physicians prescribe this way also. The means with full agonist, some of partial agonist is prescribed so that effect can be in controlled way. So here as we talked about affinity, affinity means ability of drug to bind a receptor is affinity. Same way potency, it is a measure of drug activity expressed in terms of amount required to produce an effect of given intensity. When efficacy, it is related with maximum effect of any drug regardless of dose. Then there is a non-receptor mechanism. If we talk to in contrast with the high potency or high selectivity drugs which combine with a specific receptor, many of these drugs exert their effects via physical properties or chemical reactions also. That's due to their presence in some body compartment. Like if we talk about antacid, which neutralize gastric acid. Then same way osmotic diuretics, which increases the osmolality of renal tubular fluid. And this, same way you can talk about lubricating laxatives. So these are the drugs which are having low potency and with specificity, or this mechanism is called as non-receptor mechanism. Actually, in real sense, they are also not a lot of times qualifying the definition of drugs in usual sense, but they are really medicines and they are used for recovery from various problems also. Same way metal chelating agents are there, they are used in treatment of poisoning and all. So they have different mode of action. So they are also used as medicine. So what we found that pharmacology at all is about the effect of drug on the body and body's response towards that drug. Details of some of these drugs mentioned in your syllabus we will see when we will see the pharmacology of various group of drugs like anesthetic, antipyretic, hypnotic. These are given in your syllabus. So okay, thank you very much. So if you like this lecture, please like and share this video and subscribe this channel. We will cover the whole part of pharmacology given in BMS and with more details about the herbal pharmacology or metal or herbo-mineral pharmacology given or used in Ayurvedic medicines. So thank you very much.